You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Coming up on today's podcast, we got a lot to get to. I got some thoughts on the Guardians. It all started with a thread on Twitter that I finally learned how to do a thread. I mean, welcome to the 2020s, right? I'm like an old man, but I figured it out finally. And I want to talk about what I said about the Guardians, who ended up winning their series against the Tigers with a victory, a walk-off victory this afternoon. We'll get look ahead to the Cavs and Celtics game 2. That all coming up on the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. And let me start with this before we get to the Guardian stuff that I want to talk about. Think you know who's going to set the tone for the game? Make the bet at Bet Rivers, and you'll pick up an extra bonus with the first bucket bet and get. Place a wager on who will make the first basket of any NBA game. When you do, Bet Rivers will give you a profit boost to use on another bet. See the Bet Rivers app for details on the first bucket bet and get. So I initially put out a bunch of tweets about the Guardians today. And first of all, the Guardians win after losing that crazy game yesterday. They bounce back today, take the series from the Tigers. Final score was a walk-off win. The Guardians win it 5-4. Despite another rough outing from the starting pitcher, but Tanner Bybee, it's funny. He was cruising through the first 3 innings, and then the 4th inning, he gave up a bunch of hits, some extra base hits, and he gives up 5 runs in that inning, and that was it. He threw a ton of pitches that inning. Total pitch count probably could have gone another inning, maybe even 2, but after the long 4th and being over 80 pitches at that point, Stephen Vogt pulled him, and it continues to be a struggle. Tanner Bybee's been very up and down. His last 2 starts bad. Of the 3 hotshot rookies last year at pitcher that you were counting on for a lot this year, it's not been good. Gavin Williams hasn't pitched due to injury. Logan Allen's got an ERA over 6, and after today, Tanner Bybee's got an ERA of 4.91. And yet, even with that, with Shane Bieber out for the year, with still being plenty of holes in the lineup, the Guardians sit at 24-13 following today's victory. Another series win. They're in first place by 2.5 over Kansas City, who won today, and 3 over Minnesota. Tigers are 5 back. All teams over 500, except for the White Sox, obviously. The Guardians are tied with the Yankees for the second best record in the American League, just percentage points behind Baltimore. But as we speak, Baltimore and the Yankees are playing, so that may change. I'm recording a rare recorded night podcast. Usually my night podcasts are live reactions to games, but because the Guardians were playing and I had a busy afternoon, I wanted to do this one at night. And so it's a good victory. The Guardians' run differential is plus 41. That's the 4th best in the American League, behind Baltimore, the Yankees, and Kansas City, believe it or not. There's a lot of things to like about the Guardians. They've played well at home and on the road. They're 12-6 at home. They're 12-7 on the road. And how are they doing it? Well, they've been clutch offensively. Their key guys, led by Steven Kwan and Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez and Jimenez, have done a really good job, although obviously now Kwan is hurt. We talked about that the other day, and he's going to be out for a while. The bullpen's been sensational. Absolutely great for the most part, with very few exceptions. And they play great defense. That's the thing. We don't talk about that very much. But even though they have holes in the lineup offensively, they're a really strong defensive team. Obviously, Jose is very good at third. Rocchio struggled offensively, although got the walk-off hit today. Is very good at shortstop. Jimenez is as good as it gets at second base. Josh Naylor's improved at first. Bo Naylor, it's not pretty behind the plate. Obviously, Austin Hedges is better there. Steven Kwan, when he's in the lineup, when he's not hurt, is a Gold Glover in left field. Tyler Freeman's been productive in center. They're fine, adequate and right, depending on who they got out there. Gabriel Arias is a good defender in the infield when he plays. Mentioned Hedges. Couple other things I wanted to mention for today's game. Well, I guess I should finish the thought. So that's it. It's the bullpen, the defense, some clutch hitting, and just enough starting pitching have made up for the holes in the rotation and the holes in the lineup. But that won't hold for all year. The Guardians are a smart organization. They're well run. They've been well managed. Been well managed for years by Frank Kona. So far, Stephen Vogt acquitted himself very well as a rookie manager, just out of the big leagues a couple of years ago. And so that's why they are where they are. Now, before I go to the bigger picture on the Guardians, let me just mention two other things from today. David Fry, I mentioned on the Ultimate Guardian show and my podcast the other day that I'd like to see David Fry when he plays in the leadoff spot. He was hitting fifth and more of a power spot. He hit the home run to tie the game in the ninth. The Guardians were down in the ninth. He tied it, and then they won it in the bottom of the 10th on the Rocchio single. And congratulations to Kyle Manzardo, who did not start today after starting his major league career 0 for 7, including 5 strikeouts in his first 5 at-bats. Today came in as a pinch hitter and came through with an opposite field base hit. So congratulations to him getting his major league his first major league hit. Now he is 1 for 8. And it just, after the win today and the way things have been going, and I was thinking about the Guardians' big picture, and it led me to a stream of consciousness on Twitter. And at first I posted it, and then I realized that, I didn't do the what do you call it? The oh God, what do they call it? That I don't know how to do, and I figured out how to do a thread. That's it. So I finally figured out how to do it as a thread. So let me read to you what I wrote. Okay? Let me read to you what I wrote here, in case you missed it or you're not on Twitter. I've been tough on the Cleveland Guardians front office the last couple of years, deservedly so, in my opinion. But it is amazing and not appreciated by way too many in Cleveland how good Guardians president Chris Antonetti and Guardians GM Mike Chernoff are at their jobs. They have to deal with a pathetically cheap owner. They have to do it in a financially unbalanced sport, and they have been far more successful in a far less advantageous situation than not only their counterparts in the city, as I wrote, but many of their counterparts in Major League Baseball as well. Obviously, they don't get the homer pass that the Browns do from so many, and I get it. The goal is to win the World Series, and they've fallen short. 3 World Series. They've been in the World Series 3 times in the last 30 years. They've lost all 3. They've been right there in all 3, but they've lost all 3. And under this current regime, obviously, they went to the World Series in 2016. But if you really consider the disadvantages that they have, it's incredible how good they've been. Once again this year, despite some clear holes on paper, the team is showing fight, grit, toughness that has been there almost every season during this regime. I'm rooting like hell for this team to get to the postseason, and I will continue to hope, probably against hope, that the owner will do what it takes to fill at least some of the holes as the season goes along. I believe the American League is wide open. Let's give these guys a chance to win it all. Hashtag for the land, LFG, let's bleep and go. And I thought about that because I have been, overall, since I moved to Cleveland in August of 2011, I've been very complimentary of the Guardians, deservedly so. I've been very complimentary of the man who was their president when I first got here, Mark Shapiro, the guy who was their GM and is now their president, Chris Antonetti, and their guy who was assistant GM and now is the GM, and Mike Chernoff. I've been mostly complimentary. Last couple of years, I've been critical. And again, I think that's fair. They made a lot of mistakes. They have been has seemed like afraid to pull the trigger, to break up their glut of minor league players to get proven talent. And they haven't been able to do it. A lot of the young players that had a ton of hope coming up have not performed and don't have the value that they did. They've moved off of players who look like good players. Obviously, Will Benson, though, and Nolan Jones not following it up this year, but certainly Yandy Diaz has been really good, and others as well. Some of the veteran signings they've made the last few years in terms of Josh Bell and this year with Austin Hedges, I get it, although we know his flaws. Whether it was Mike Zunino last year they wasted money on, or Ramon Laureano, who they decided to not to non-tender, they've made plenty of mistakes the past couple of years. And yet, despite all of that, and with the limited payroll by the cheap-ass owner they have, Here they are yet again leading the division. Now, maybe it won't last. Maybe the flaws that this team so clearly has will catch up with them sooner rather than later or at some point. But this organization, from the front office through manager, and there's something about the culture of this club that more often than not they overachieve. They get the best out of some, guys that maybe in other places you wouldn't get it. And it's been the case with the pitching quite often, not really the case this year in terms of the starters. And there's a toughness to this franchise and a grit, as I mentioned, that really stands out and shows up nearly every season. It didn't last year. But this team is pushing hard, and their record is so impressive. Now, we got a long way to go. By the end of this weekend, we'll be at the quarter pole of the season. I'm not saying you got to make a trade now, but at some point, the Guardians, I mean, I say have to, but obviously we've learned from this ownership group, they'd rather spend money on wasted Senate campaigns than on their ball club, and that's unfortunate. In fact, they're trying to hit up the city of Cleveland to pay for their new team shop for $1 million, which is insane. And the city of Cleveland should not spend a penny for their team shop. That's absolutely ridiculous. But the rest of this organization, below the owner, a lot of great people, a lot of smart people, and a lot of successful people. And because I've been so critical lately, sometimes I forget how badly they're hamstrung, and I just wanted to give those guys some credit today after another gritty victory. The Guardians' homestand now over. They have a chance to really, improve on their record. You got a 4-game series in Chicago against the White Sox starting tomorrow. And then it gets tougher. Then you have a challenging week. You got to go to Texas for 3, home for a decent Minnesota team for 3, and then home for the Mets, Mets were terrible the first couple of weeks. Then they played great for a couple of weeks. Now they've played poorly again, but they're a decent team. But then after that, a great stretch where the Guardians will play 3 with the Angels, 3 with the Rockies, 3 with the Nats, 3 with the Royals, who were good, but then 3 with the Marlins, 2 with the Reds, 3 with the Blue Jays, who were not playing well. So a lot of favorable games in the first half of the season. They got a couple of tough series right before the break with San Francisco and Kansas City, Detroit, and Tampa. Some challenges there, but the Guardians really have a chance to be in great shape at the All-Star break. But they've got to continue to have some guys overachieve. They got to get some luck with health, get Gavin Williams back. Hopefully Steven Kwan not out too long, and keep being clutch. Naylor's got to stay healthy, man. I would DH him quite a bit. I like that Manzardo's getting a breather to just focus on hitting, but eventually he's got to play first because the Guardians have to keep Josh Naylor healthy, and the best way to do that is have him DH as much, if not more. I know he likes to play first base, and he has improved. I give him credit. I give Josh Naylor a lot of credit. I was not a big Josh Naylor guy before last year. I thought he was a decent player. He's better than that. He's a leader. He's improved immeasurably against lefties. He's clutch. He's improved in the field. He's turned himself into a heck of a player. Major kudos to him. Now he's got his brother turned around. But we're going to be patient with him too. Bo's a good player. He's a good talent. He'll get there. The defense is a lot of work. I know he's struggling offensively. We know he can hit. The defense needs a whole lot of cleanup. I haven't seen any improvement on that side at all. He has really struggled behind the plate. All right, quick water break. I'm going to talk some hoops here in a minute. But first, let me tell you more about the Bet Rivers app and why I love it so much. At Bet Rivers, they're offering NBA playoff parlay insurance. Bet Rivers, oh so close, parlay insurance during the NBA playoffs. So here's how it works. Place a parlay of 4 or more legs on an NBA playoff game each day. You get part of your stake back in bonus bets if you're exactly one leg short. So if you bet a 5-leg parlay and you only get one right, well, you're out of luck. But if you bet a 5-leg parlay and you get 4 right, you got a chance to get part of your stake back. This is really cool. The insurance is valid on your first NBA playoff parlay of the day. See the BetRivers app for more details and to see how much stake back you are eligible for. Check that out right now. All right. Got an itchy nose driving me crazy. All right. So, speaking of the NBA playoffs, we talked last night, the instant reaction to the Cavs just getting their doors blown off by Boston. Talked about how it wasn't surprising. And as I look at the latest BetRiver line, the Cavs are a 13.5-point underdog. They were an 11.5-point underdog for the first game. Although I think it maybe went to 12 right before tip-off. And so for tomorrow, after getting blown up by 25, they're a 13.5-point dog. If you bet it on the money line, if you bet the Cavs on the money line, you get plus 650. There's a reason they're plus 650. The Celtics are minus 1,000. To win a playoff game in the second round, minus 1,000 is crazy. But it seems like a no-brainer. And the Cavs are going to lose this series. We know that. But I want to see them show some fight and toughness. And can somebody besides Donovan Mitchell show up at all in this series? Jarrett Allen played well before he got hurt. It's possible. I saw Chris Fedor today say that Jarrett Allen's questionable for Game 2. Dean Wade's out again. He has obviously not played in the playoffs. He hasn't played for a while. But for Game 2, Jarrett Allen, it's possible he'll be back. It seems unlikely, but it's possible. You know the guy wants to play. But I'd like to see some. Jarrett Allen's played well when he's been healthy. Obviously, we know what Donovan Mitchell's done the last bunch of games. He's just been an absolute warrior. But Darius Garland has not really had one complete game. Certainly, Evan Mobley is not. Max Strus has been bad. Niang's been awful. It's been a huge disappointment. Even though they won a series this year and they didn't last year. Obviously, the postseason this year for the Cavs, way better than last year, but still. And I never expected them to beat Boston. But don't lay down like dogs. Like show some fight in this series. If you're going to lose Game 2, at least battle and make it a game. I have no faith that's going to happen, though. And when this season's over, and it's going to be over sometime next week, most likely, there's going to be a lot of questions when it comes to this team. Will Kobe Altman, the GM, get fired? Will J.B. Bickerstaff, the head coach, get fired? If it were up to me, I'd fire them both. Obviously, Bickerstaff's going to get fired. I'd fire both guys. I'd completely clean house. I'd fire the entire front office. And Dan Gilbert loves hiring the next assistant. That's what he does almost all the time. I wouldn't do that anymore. They need a fresh perspective in this organization. And not just another yes man along the line to Dan Gilbert. Now, Kobe Altman has had more freedom than other GMs have had because Dan Gilbert's been less involved due to his health. But still, I really feel like they need a voice from outside the organization. I have no faith that they'll do it, but we'll see. And the team needs to, when this ends, the team needs to get changed. There's no doubt you cannot, like last year, they were like, okay, we'll run it back, but we'll add some ancillary pieces. And the team's not better. Now, they were better in the playoffs in the first round. They didn't play as good a team, but still they won, and they lost last year in embarrassing fashion. So it was an improvement a little bit, but not enough. This offseason, even though they appear to be close, I think either Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland will be gone. And that's up to Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell signs an extension in Cleveland, then they trade Darius Garland. If he doesn't, then they trade him. If he won't sign an extension, he's got to be traded this offseason. I hate to say it because he's head and shoulders, obviously, the best player on this team. But if he won't sign an extension this offseason, you have to trade him. You can't let him walk as a free agent the following year. And I would trade Evan Mobley also. I'm done. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe by next year or the year after, Evan Mobley will turn into that player that so many thought he'd be. I don't see it. I think the guy's a complete stiff on offense. He doesn't have that dog. He doesn't have that killer instinct. It doesn't appear. I think that's something you either are or you're not. And he doesn't feel like that kind of player. I don't think he'll ever be. Doesn't mean he can't improve. I just don't think he's ever going to be the player they thought he was. Again, I don't proclaim to be an NBA expert. I'm just seeing I'm seeing what I see, and I'm saying what I see. And if I'm proven wrong, I'll admit it, but I don't see it. Now, his trade value is not as high as it was, but there's still got to be teams where maybe he'd be a better fit, or they think they can get that great player out of him. We'll see. But this team's got to be totally different next year. From the GM there's got to be a new GM making the decisions, a new coach leading the players, and some new guys on the team. In a perfect world, to me, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Jared Allen, and you have some new, 3-4 new guys replacing Mobley and Garland that hopefully are better fits. Hopefully one's a wing player. We'll see. But there's certainly changes that have to be made to this team. All right, thanks to everybody for joining me as always. Thanks to Monzo for producing. Please hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I appreciate nearly 4,500 of you who have subscribed already. I'll be next podcast Thursday is after the Cavs play Game 2 against the Celtics. We'll have live reaction to that. And then Game 3 Saturday night, of course, as well. We'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.